Welcome back. It's now time to go in depth. It's been a year since the Simpson-Miller administration took office in Jamaica after a landslide victory at the polls. On Sunday night, the Prime Minister delivered her first national address of the new year, outlining what she believes are some of her administration's hallmark achievements and also looking at the way forward. Now, we showed you some of those excerpts earlier in this newscast. And on the phone, we have the opposition's spokesman on finance, Audley Shaw. Welcome, Mr. Shaw.
Thank you for having me, dear.
Now, of course, the big item is still the IMF agreement. The Prime Minister barely skimmed over the issue in her address, and your party has been asking for more concrete timelines for the preconditions. But what would the JLP have done differently? Because when you left power, the last IMF agreement was virtually defunct.
Well, let me just say, when we handed over government, there are reviews to be undertaken under the then existing agreement. But what would have happened was that the agreement was coming to an end by May of 2012 anyway. So by then, we would have had to make a decision whether we are going to seek to negotiate a new agreement or not. So in a sense, beyond May of last year, that issue is now a moot point. The government, this government that is in power, promised before coming into power that they would start negotiations within a couple of weeks, and they expected within short order thereafter. I think in one case it was mentioned about 90 days, they expected to have an agreement. So I just want to put it out that it is useless at this stage to seek to try to cast blame on the opposition for why there is no agreement today. The government has had 1 full year to put in place an agreement with the IMF, and I do not have any intention of taking any responsibility for them not having it now.
But how can you not take any responsibility, though, because there were, what, 3 or 4 tests that weren't passed, or at least there wasn't any test that was made public?
And what does that have to do with a new agreement? The old agreement ran out in May of last year. And what I'm trying to explain to you is that as a matter of fact, notwithstanding the non-existence of the reviews, the quarterly reviews, the fact is that we had a sufficiently good relationship with all the multilateral agencies that as late as November in 2011, I was able to secure from the IDB and the World Bank 318 million United States dollars in loans at 1.2% interest rate. Now, that was part of a total package of over $3 billion that I've brought in from the multilaterals at interest rates of less than 2%.
So what you're saying is that things were fine when you left office and there was no need to negotiate?
Not only were they fine, the economy was stable. The net international reserves were at $2 billion. It's now at $1 billion, cut in half. The exchange rate was stable for over 2 years. It has now devalued by 7.5% since the government came into power. Interest rates were at an all-time low, and they are now beginning to trend up back again. There is now a black market for foreign exchange in our economy. We haven't seen a black market in Jamaica in 5 to 6 or even more years. But that has returned because there is inadequate foreign exchange that is available in the normal commercial banking system. And in terms of growth, when I left the economy in December of 2011, the economy had grown 1.3% in that calendar year. We have had 4 consecutive quarters of negative growth since that time.
Now, Mr. Shaw, you've said that...
The issue, with all due respect, that the Prime Minister has failed to address is this aggressive deterioration that's taking place in the economy, where prices are going through the roof, the NIR is going in the wrong direction, there is no growth in the economy, and interest rates are going in the wrong direction. Things are in a bad way, and she should have sought to address these illnesses in the economy, as well as at least give us a timeline and a time frame within which she intends that a new agreement will be signed. Now, the minister had told us just last week that there are certain prior action requirements that will have to be fulfilled before a new agreement can be secured. What the government needs to tell the people of Jamaica, what are these prior action requirements, and how long will it take for these prior action requirements to be implemented?
But they already had a timeline and they missed it. They had said before the end of the year. So what's the point of setting another timeline? Because
they have now admitted that there are some prior action requirements. We don't know what those are. They need to tell us. And they need to tell us how long will it take for them to implement those prior action requirements. The government needs to be more transparent in relation to the issues that they are dealing with the IMF.
Now, because of those same preconditions that you refer to, some observers are saying that Jamaicans need to prepare for the possibility that we don't get a new IMF agreement, or at least start doing something to shore up the economy in the meantime. Now, what can we do, especially when the dollar continues to slide?
Well, let me say this, it's Enriquez. The prospect of the government breaking from the IMF and not having a new agreement with the IMF, I believe it's a very dangerous thing. We should not be contemplating that at this time. Because if they do not secure a new agreement with the IMF, it means that low-cost funding, as what I described to you earlier, from the IDB, the World Bank, the Caribbean Development Bank, and importantly, grant funding from the European Union, all of that would dry up. It means that the government would then have to resort to borrowing from the local private sector and to borrowing from the international capital markets at considerably higher interest rates, which would then drive up the interest rate profile of the country. And God forbid that we should go back to the 1990s, into the period of the 1990s, when interest rates at the commercial banks average over 50% for 10 years, leading to the collapse of the financial sector in the middle of the 1990s. We cannot afford to go back there.
Now, on another topic, the Prime Minister talked about employment in her address. Now, of course, the PNP's hallmark jobs program has been the JEEP. According to the Prime Minister, they've employed 17,000 persons under the JEEP, and that's more than 3 times what they initially intended. It sounds like it's been a success. Would you agree?
It depends on how you define and appreciate what good quality jobs are. Now, these so-called JEEP jobs, first of all, where did the money come from? It's not new money. It's all monies from existing programs, such as the Jamaica Development Infrastructure Project, National Solid Waste Management Authority, the National Housing Trust, the Human Employment and Resource Training Program. They just pulled money from a variety of existing programs and called it a new name, called it JEEP. It's a scam. That's what it is. And it has turned out to be basically a massive crash program work where they offered 17,000 people, is what the Prime Minister mentioned last night. 17,000 people under this JEEP program have gotten work. Most of that work is short-term, 1 or 2 days, or maybe 3 days, maximum, a few days of work. We're not talking about permanent jobs. We're not talking about good quality permanent jobs. We're talking about temporary jobs that in Jamaica's jargon we call bolo work. Now that is, and incidentally, if they had not picked those monies from those various agencies would have created those jobs in the same way in the existing programs. So this is by no means a solution, a sustainable long-term solution to our problems.
Going back to a point that you raised earlier, you mentioned an existing black market because of the slide in the dollar. Now, is there evidence to support that this really is happening, that this exists?
Absolutely. There are numerous business persons who have said to me and have said to others, it is well known, it's flourishing in Jamaica right now. People go to their commercial bank of choice. Business people, they are importers, they need foreign exchange. Some of them are manufacturers, they need foreign exchange. They ask for $100,000 US. They are told they can only get 10,000 or 20,000 US dollars. What do? They then go outside of the banking system Somebody is out there with US dollars and saying you can get it from me, but not at the official rate of $93 Jamaican to 1 US. You can get it from me at $95 or $96 Jamaican to 1 US dollar. And that is now flourishing. And that is part of why we are seeing an aggressive increase in prices taking place. Flour has gone up, baked goods are going up, cement price goes up on the 11th of this month by $100 a bag, and it goes on. And that is the sort of thing that's happening. And this price instability will continue because what is happening with some of the entrepreneurs is that they are now pricing at closer to $100 Jamaican to 1 US dollar to make sure that they do not lose as a result of the instability in the exchange rate.
Do you think, Mr. Shaw, that once an IMF agreement finally is agreed upon, that those prices will come back down?
No, it is. We do not have there isn't a tradition in Jamaica of prices coming down.
Unfortunately.
Unfortunately, there's a tradition. In fact, our exchange rate, unlike other mature economies, where the exchange rate tends to fluctuate up and down, ours tend to only go one way. So what we have to do, and do it urgently, is to hurry up and get that IMF agreement, get additional resources into the economy through the other multilateral institutions, and have stability once again, so that you can halt the slide of the dollar and therefore halt the increase in prices. That is what makes the IMF agreement even that much more urgent.
Certainly. Well, thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Shaw.
Thank you very much for having me, and God bless you for the new year.
That was the former Minister of Finance, now opposition spokesman on finance, Audley Shaw. And from those pressing issues, we move into much lighter matters. Sports is up after the break.